Now he's here on this very show, I'd like to give a warm Xbox welcome to the star of NBC's Chuck, among other things, Mr. Zachary Levi. Hey, Zach, how are you?
What's up, Larry? How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I got to tell you, you're probably one of the bigger stars I've had on this show. I mean, I've had a lot of people. I don't know. I know you don't listen to my show because you're so busy with the show, but I mean, I've had a lot of people, and you're right there at the top.
Well, I'm honored, and I feel horrible for the amount of people you've been able to get on the show. I don't know what to tell you. I am not that big a star, so clearly you need to set your sights a little higher.
Well, you know what, but you're not. You know what, you are in the nerds and in the geek space, and I got to tell you, man. I mean, I love Chuck. I watch it every week, and it's coming back this fall, right?
Yeah, we have. It's our fifth and final, man. It's our swan song. We are riding off into the sunset together. In what will probably be just 13 episodes. There's a chance that we might do more than that, but, NBC has taken us off Monday nights and put us on a Friday nights, and that's normally the sign that they're putting you out to pasture. But, again, and this is what I've told a lot of fans who have been bummed out that it's our last season, which is understandable. I always try to find that silver lining, and the silver lining is... And that's something that, especially in today's, kind of television culture, is a very rare thing. Those hit shows that go 7, 8, 9 years might just get the plug pulled on them out of nowhere. Yeah. If the ratings dip too low and have come back by the skin of our teeth every season, really. And so much of that is due to the fans' passion and fight. And I can't tell them thank you enough. I will continue to thank them for the rest of my life and career because I only have one because of them. And, what we're being afforded right now is the opportunity to say goodbye to one another, the cast and crew, to really, when you know that you're coming to an end, you can have that appropriate goodbye. And we also have, we get closure with the fans. We get to say goodbye to them, and at least as, a collective of the show. Certainly not goodbye forever. Hopefully we'll all be able to see them and interact with them and connect with them on the projects that we jump into in the future. And hopefully even with the cast and crew, I'll be able to work with them and things that I work on in the future. But, this chapter of our lives together is coming to a close, as things do, as chapters of life do. And you just have to kind of embrace that and appreciate the last 5 years and then, move on to whatever's next. But it's been an incredible run, and I'm really blessed to have been a part of it.
And you've not only that, and I want to thank you on behalf of the fans for giving us such a great show, something that nerds and geeks and people like myself can connect with, and you really brought that to, I don't want to say mainstream, but you brought it to a show that we could enjoy every single week.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, look, I got to tell you, when I read the pilot for Chuck, 4.5 or whatever years ago, I read a lot of pilots. I had done a lot of pilots, and a lot of really fun characters that I've gotten to play over the years. But when I read the pilot for Chuck, and I've said this before in interviews, but being a nerd, being someone who grew up on video games and comic books and technology, and still being a nerd about all those things now, I read this pilot, and I was reading this character. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to be this. I am this guy.
Yeah.
I can show up to work and not even work. I don't even have to act. I can just be myself. And I was just stoked that NBC and Warner Brothers were willing to take a chance on a show that did have that kind of nerd element, and that our writers, embraced it, and that we were even able to have this moment, this moment in time where, and I think it was also really poignant and interesting that not only were we coming up right then, but like Big Bang Theory was coming up at the same time, and there were other kind of entities, be they film or television, that were all percolating right around the same time that had a nerdier theme. And there was a lot of write-ups about how nerd is the new cool and blah blah blah, and it's like, look, I don't think nerd is the new cool. I think nerd's always been cool, but again, that's maybe not what mainstream understands or how they gravitate toward it, and they need to have little catchphrases or whatever, and that's fine. I'm just glad that more people are embracing the fact that not only is it okay to be a nerd, but that, and as far as I'm concerned, everyone's a nerd. Being nerdy just means you're passionate about something. So, if you're super into basketball, yeah, you could be a jock, you could play ball every day and work out at the gym and all that stuff. But I'd say you're nerdy about basketball, and that's cool. That's fine. I've said this before. It's like Jay Leno's nerdy about cars. The guy has a hangar at Burbank Airport full of cars. Like, who needs that many cars?
Right.
Well, when you're a nerd about cars, apparently you need that many cars, And when I get onto a plane, I pick up Popular Science and Xbox Magazine. Those are my two. That's my reading material. Much to the chagrin of my agents who need me reading scripts, I'm reading up on my latest technology and my latest video games because that's what I'm nerdy about, and that's what I see the future, and I go, oh my gosh, the new BioShock and this awesome new back scratcher / shaver / phone is coming out. I need to have both.
Now, I got to ask you a question. You talked about people being nerdy like basketball people, and we got so much to discuss, but I want to ask you, what is the weirdest thing you're nerdy about? Because I'll tell you, let me give you an example. I have been accused many times, and I admit it, I'm an ice nerd. I love nice, clean ice, like drinking the stuff you put in your glass. What is some weird thing you're nerdy about?
Well, I don't know if that would make you an ice nerd as much as just OCD, yeah. But I hear you. Oh gosh, so many things. I'm very finicky about certain things because I have I think like many of us, I have a very clear way that I see the world and the way I think everyone should see the world, know?
Right.
So I guess kind of along those lines of, something that's kind of like an not even an OCD, but like a passion that maybe isn't always good but drives me crazy is driving etiquette. I really do love cars and driving a lot. I've gotten to race in the Long Beach Grand Prix and a like celebrity race, and I have a really fun car and motorcycles, and so like it's something that I kind of I take seriously. I'm kind of nerdy about driving, and but therefore I'm also very passionate about the way I think people ought to drive.
So let me be clear. This is about how people are driving. It's not like driving etiquette, like, oh, you need to make sure you're wearing your driving gloves when you hop in the Bentley.
Well, no, it is exactly that. No, exactly. No, it's not that. It's like for example, in the States, people are not told, you're told that like, hey, the maximum speed limit is 65 miles an hour, that a big red octagon with the word stop on it means stop. You're taught all these things. What you're not taught is when you're on the freeway and you're in the fast lane, if you're not passing someone, get over one lane. Leave the fast lane open. It is not your job to play California Highway Patrol or whatever state you happen to be in. You are not the Highway Patrol. You are not the sheriffs. If you don't want to drive faster than 65, if you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. Nobody's asking you to. Just don't be blocking the fast lane. That is for people who need to pass. And when you do decide that you're going to be like, well, I'm going the speed limit and I have every right to be in this lane, you're actually screwing up the flow of traffic all over the freeway.
Yeah, that's a drag. I've been
it drives me out of my mind. And then and then sometimes I'll be in the fast lane, and that person's button, and I'll kind of sit there for a second, like, hey, right behind you. And I don't want to honk. I don't want to like flash my lights. I find that to be the last resort. And I can see them. I can see them in their rearview mirror. They're looking at me. I'm looking at them. I'm like, you don't pretend you can't see me, buddy. I'm right here.
I'm all up in your grill.
All up in your grill. And then they will sit there still because it's this level of pride. Like, I'm not moving over for you. Dude, in Europe, if you do that in certain places in Europe, they'll pull you over. They'll say, hey, you're obstructing traffic. You're going to get a ticket for not passing in the fast lane. That's where implement some European law. That's all. That's all.
I'm down with you on that. So that's good to know. So let's move a little bit forward because I've got you on the show. We've got some great stuff to talk about. Next week is the week. It's San Diego Comic-Con. You've been many, many times, probably as a not as a star, and now you're going as a star. But you've got some really cool stuff going on there. Let's talk about that.
Yes, sir. So basically, Comic-Con's been this amazing experience for me, for the cast of Chuck, for the last 4 years. I mean, we've been embraced in such an incredible way. And again, being a nerd myself, it's just such an awesome world to go and hang out in and have fun in. And, that I get to work in Hollywood. I have a lot of friends here and a lot of friends that end up going down to Comic-Con for their own panels and stuff. And so a lot of us all find ourselves down there. And there's parties and there's things to do, but I've kind of looked at all the little ancillary things around the convention. And while I've definitely had fun, there's always, like I'm kind of I'm a guy that can't leave well enough alone, I guess. And I sit and I try to think of, well, what would make that better, or what could be done here or there. And last year I started my company, The Nerd Machine, and and while right now we're primarily just apparel and stuff, I have much bigger visions and dreams for the company, and I'm going to explain that in a special little sit down on Sunday, the last thing we do. But we launched the company last year with just one T-shirt and the Nerd Party. It was one party. It was a dance party. It was like all night long, and it was awesome because there's no dance parties in San Diego for Comic-Con, not really.
Right.
So this year we've grown the company now for about a year, and we've got a lot more T-shirts and other little gadgets and gizmos and things like that. And I thought, okay, well, we definitely have to have another nerd party, and I want to have a merch presence down at Comic-Con because there are people, and we should be down there and selling some T-shirts and hanging out and meeting fans. And we talked to Comic-Con, and they're like, "Hey, we'd love to have you here, but there's about a 3-year waiting list in order to get booth space on the floor. So let's see if we can work something out. Just if you can hang on a bit." We're like, "Hey, no problem, totally understand." And then while we were hanging out, my mind starts kind of noodling and brainstorming, and I'm like, well, why do we have to have a booth on the convention floor? I don't think we need to do that. Downtown San Diego is beautiful and awesome in the gas lamp, and fans are milling about and going and eating and drinking. And, why can't Comic-Con be a little bit more like South by Southwest, where it's, more sprawling, and there's like all kinds of different venues, and people are, doing a panel here or a signing there or whatever. And so I started thinking about this idea and thinking about how I have a lot of other friends, from LA that go down and do signings and stuff like that. And I thought, well, why don't I talk to a couple of them, and why don't I just go and get my own venue? And that way I got to get a venue for the party anyway. And then during the day I can, sell merch and do signings and have other people come through and do signings. And, maybe just pop in for 15 minutes and, through the power of Twitter, you can do that. Adam Baldwin can say, "Hey, for the next, 15 minutes, I'm going to be over here at this location if you want to get something signed," and just see how people react. And I think they'll react pretty positively. I think they're always looking for something to do, and they're looking for, reasons to kind of pop out of the convention floor just for a little bit. There's a lot of people in there, and you kind of need to catch your breath and get your bearings. And so anyway, that all started snowballing, and what eventually led to what we're calling the Nerd HQ. And what the Nerd HQ is, and what I want it to be, and what I hope fans find it to be, is kind of just a giant nerdgasm. In this our particular demographic, the kind of nerd demographic. Although again, I think that everyone's a nerd, and that is definitely one of our kind of mission statements. But certainly there are like the core nerds, right? And I think that in that world, there's a very clear triple crown. And that's Comic-Con, E3, and CES. Yep. Entertainment, gaming, and tech. And they're all very intertwined, and I think they're going to become even more intertwined and symbiotic with one another.